Though, on BBC Radio Nottingham, whilst recession has hit much of the West in recent years, the Chinese economy has boomed to become one of the strongest in the world. And if you're wondering what that has to do with Nottinghamshire, then here are some figures for you. Exports worth nearly £800 million were sold to China from firms in the East Midlands in the first 6 months of this year, making it the third biggest market for companies in this region. Business experts are predicting that those numbers will continue to grow. So China could well hold an important key to Nottinghamshire's economic future. Now, throughout the week, BBC Radio Nottingham will be examining this relationship, asking whether China's human rights record is something, for instance, that companies here should be worried about. One of the first organisations to realise the potential of China is the University of Nottingham, which generates £80 million a year through its campus in Ningbo and the fees that its foreign students pay here. There's also a brewery on the University of Nottingham's Sutton Bonington site, and it's been helping local micro brewers sell their bottles to China. BBC Radio Nottingham's David Sykes has the story.
What have we got here?
Across the East Midlands, there are 135 so-called microbreweries, and there are more bubbling up at a rate of 7% a year. But as the name suggests, these can be very small, and they sometimes lack the resources, the expertise, and the quantities of scale to sell internationally. So that's why this newly exporting Nottinghamshire company is here to help them out.
My name is Jerry Avis. I'm the project manager for the Food and Biofuel Innovation Centre. It's both a building, it's equipment, and it's also people to help small businesses in the East Midlands area. And as part of that, we've been working with the many craft breweries to help them with the science of brewing, the craft of brewing, and also their sales and marketing. I think the range of breweries you'd be quite surprised at. I mean, you've got the guy who comes from the home brewing background, who's always been interested in beer, that's doing, a one-barrel brew in his garage. But you've also got the likes of Thornbridge and Castle Rock and the bigger brewers who've got a large estate of pubs now. I think Thornbridge are now exporting probably something like 20% of their beers around the world. So it's a sliding scale, and what we want to do is to get more of those small breweries onto the beginning of that scale so they can increase their market. One of the difficulties is that the number of pubs has been declining over the last few years. The number of breweries has been increasing, so it's really key that these small brewers have other markets to look at, and the export market, of course, is one of those.
China is potentially a huge market for these breweries. Just in the first half of this year, firms in the East Midlands exported £778 million worth of goods to China. But how well do our British beers translate to Chinese tastes? Alan Clements is an international marketing expert and is MD of the British Craft Beers Company.
One of the challenges have been to see what is the difference between the British palate for beer and the Chinese one. So we've had a lot of beer tastings in different cities of China. And what seems to be very clear is they actually like some of the more balanced craft beers, not too bitter. They like the alcohol, but they also like the darker beers, the milds, the stouts, the porters. And the ladies like a raspberry wheat beer or a fruit beer, even a chocolate beer. And I think that's why we've started a company out of all this research. We've started a company, British Craft Beers Limited, to start to actually try to sell this. In fact, after a month's sales trip, we're starting to sell beer and ship beer out to various importers in China. Obviously, shipping beer out to China, it takes about 6 weeks or so, and then it goes through the warehouse process and distribution. So shelf life is absolutely crucial, and Jerry's been working with the breweries on that issue as well.
So what is this?
This is a nano brewery. So this is our research tool for the Brewing Science Department at the University of Nottingham, and it's probably I would guess, the smallest brewery in the world. So we get really good data for our research work. We also train the craft brewers in here as well.
So it's kind of about teaching the breweries that you're working with, teaching them how to make better beer that's worthy of being exported around the world.
Yes, it's crucial that flavour is maintained right through the brewing process, into the bottling and through the export process to reach the consumer in its best possible form.
It's been quite an interesting adventure and journey from research to sales in China. But we've managed to start to do that now.
Some of the people working at the Nano Brewery at the University of Nottingham's Sutton Bonington campus. So a little bit more about China and its